Well, here we are with a lovely little Norfolk stream for a day's roaching. It's very fast below the bridge here where two rivers meet, and very shallow, more dacy. But for roach I like this top glide where it comes down from the main pool, meanders through these thick beds of sweet rush. It's a beautiful spot. Not very deep, perhaps 3-4 feet. It's a peculiar stretch, this, because sometimes the roach tend to lay in the lay-bys further upstream on the left-hand bank, particularly in flood, and there's been some floods recently. There's debris, old logs, pieces of polystyrene littering all the beds of sweet rush on either side. And sometimes the roach will be in the centre channel. Sometimes I've even known them on my own bank, where it's very, very narrow, and I've caught them from much further upstream where the pool is. But I fancy under today's conditions, with the water being fairly clear, that they'll probably be in the last 30 or 40 yards to where it shallows up and goes under the bridge where I'm standing. So I think I'm going to start off midway along the section and perhaps make a small move if I don't find them immediately. But basically I'm going to concentrate, I think, on the lower half. That's where I expect to find them. For most winter fishing here, I prefer long trotting. It's a nicer way of fishing than ledgering, although probably static fishing with the bait hard on the bottom like a big lump of bread flake would probably produce one of the largest roach that this little river has to hold. And in very cold conditions, that's what I might do. But generally, I like the roving game of trotting, and I shall be using centrepin reel, my favourite carbon rod, which is 13 foot, a line of about 2 pound breaking strain, smallish hook, and I shall be long trotting maggots and casters right through the centre of the little river. This is the tackle I'm using today, my 20-year-old centrepin. Float's a very simple length of peacock quill, red at the top. The shotting pattern, one tiny little shot fixed very hard on the line, not so as to break it, but to keep the float fairly rigid so it doesn't slip whenever I strike. The bulk shot about a foot below it. A very small shot, about 12 to 16 inches from the hook. I prefer these types of floats for fishing these little streams, although I could use something bigger if there was more flow. I would perhaps put a 3-swan shot Avon type float. Now, I've even used much, much bigger jobs for when the water's really moving, but it's not that fast today, and so I think I'm going to concentrate on this small piece of peacock quill. It really does pay to be quiet when you're visiting these little tiny streams. I'm trying to keep back as far as I can from the river on the other side of this wire fence, and I'm going to go well above the swim and then walk back down to where I intend to fish. Fortunately, there's a spot up here where the farmers put some old polythene bags and wrapped it around the wire, and it's a good spot to get over. The day's fishing can be ruined or made. A quick march up to the river now and a basket plonked heavily down, and the day's fishing's messed up. Most of the fish tend to congregate in the lower half of this, so I'm going to take up a position about 50 yards above the end of the glide, so I can trot nicely down. This spot here is absolutely ideal. Keeping as low as I can here. There it goes down. First thing I'm going to do is put up my stool and sit as comfortably as I can. Long trotting all day long, holding the rod, is probably one of the most demanding methods of fishing you could possibly ever meet. Now, that's fine. I've already made the rod up back at the car, Everything's around me. There's no clunking around with rod holdalls or undoing net bags, etc. Undo the maggots. And we'll put a few in, see what we've got here. Some of these are quite old in some of these boxes. Here we are, I've got a nice tin of fresh maggots there. And I've also got some old ones with some casters starting to turn. I'm going to start off by putting a few into the middle of the river at my feet because it's very, very deep, quite close in here, and fairly fast, and so they'll all get washed downstream. Right, let's try and run through for depth and see what it's like. I've set this at about, well, I don't know, about 3.5, 4 feet. I always start off fairly shallow because I don't want to catch bottom on the first run through. I'll try a couple of maggots anyway, it's the eternal optimist in me, you never know. Got a small hook on. There we are, just a gentle lob out and away she goes. Well, I think I've guessed those shots just about right. I've got about 1/4 of an inch of the float showing, which to a lot of match anglers would probably seem more than enough. But I'm looking at this float at 30 yards and I'm going to be doing it for most of the day. And so therefore I don't want to be squinting after a couple of hours. Apart from that, as I've been painstaking in ensuring that the roach aren't wary of me on my arrival, what I hope to do is encourage them to bite quite strongly anyway. It's going down nicely there. I haven't caught bottom soon, so on the next cast, what I'll probably do is increase the depth a little, I think. Often in this spot I've caught a very big roach on the very first trot through. Oh look, there's one. Oh, goodness me. Oh, goodness me. Talk something up. It's trying to get into those rushes further downstream. This is where the 13-foot rod comes in very, very useful. Oh, dear me. It's come off. Oh, well, never mind. So it goes. The current isn't that strong today. It's not really pulling line from the centrepin how I like it. So every now and again I have to give it a little help. At this spot we should start hopefully getting a few bites. Coming into danger country now. I'll just hold back to straighten the line. It's bent a little bit off course there. Oh, yes, here we are. Oh, this is a good fish. Goodness me, right at the end of the trot down there. I'm going to have to hold this out because it's winding like a maniac because it's coming into my own bank. Here it is. Oh, perhaps it isn't as good as I first thought. It just felt very, very heavy. I brought that upstream now. Oh, it's a nice roach. I'll hold it well out. I don't want to splash and clonk it around too much. What I'll try and do is net it even upstream, well away from the rest. This is why the long handle landing net comes in useful. It's a lovely fish. Here it comes. Actually, it isn't a roach, it's a rudd. Would you believe? Well, I never did. That's the first time I've caught a rudd here. There we are, it's about 3/4 pound. Very pretty fish. It's just inside its lip there. We'll pop him in the keep net and make sure the keep net's properly placed before we do anything else. Right, I've got the keep net nicely settled. It's a bit difficult getting it through those beds of sweet rush there. Out we go again. Now the shoal does tend to keep usually in the middle of the channel, although it's quite deep along the edges, and sometimes in clear conditions or when it's very bright, the roach actually keep underneath and you have to trot right alongside them, which is very difficult. But today I think they're going to be going down the middle of the channel here. And it's not easy to concentrate on keeping it down, keeping the line fairly straight. Every now and again I just hold back on the float to swing the maggot off the bottom. The flow really is quite slow. Normally I'm using a 2-swan float here and a little rattle line off the reel, but I'm having to help this as this trot. Here we are, into another fish. It's another good fish. Heading off downstream now. It's coming up against my own bank. This feels very nice indeed. I'm going to have to be very careful with this. Oh, it's trying to get underneath my own bank. Hold the rod out as far as I can. Oh dear. Oh, it's come out. I thought it was in the rushes then. Here we are. I'm trying not to let it swirl on. Oh, goodness me, that's a good roach. I don't want that to swirl on the surface and frighten the others. Ooh. Oh, he's just missed the rushes that side. Goodness me. I daren't pull too hard because it's going to rip the hook out. This is a lovely looking fish. There he goes again. There we are. I'm just going to gently get the net in position so there's no last minute stabs at it. Here it comes. Oh, what a beautiful fish. Oh, dear me. Oh, that's a beauty. Oh, that's over 1.5 pounds. That's a lovely fish. Oh, what a beautiful roach. It's neatly hooked in the top lip. It's a wonder the hook ever comes out. They're so well in at times. That's a beautiful fish. I think that's going on for £2. Beautiful fat fish. It's most unusual really, it's completely covered in black spot, which is a parasite affecting the scales, but it never seems to affect the rest of the fish. It almost looks like a separate species. I think it's quite delightful. Beautiful fish.